What's going on, people? Welcome back to Neeks Sports, here to talk some transfer news in the Premier League around Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspurs. Gareth Bale could be returning to the Premier League. I mean, he could have returned a long time ago. We know Manchester United wanted him in two separate occasions, actually. Wanted him when he was at Spurs under David Moyes. Wanted him, I think it was under LVG, around that time when we went on a big, massive spending spree. But both times he chose Real Madrid or chose to stay at Real Madrid, as the case was. And now we're hearing that he's possibly returning to the Premier League. And I think it makes sense based on the fact that he can't get any game time for Real Madrid. He's fallen out with Zidane for whatever the reason may be, whether he's disinterested in football and he wants to play golf or the manager doesn't favour him. This is from the time he scored that Champions League goal in 2018 against Liverpool. He came off the bench. He didn't start the game, came off the bench, scored a goal. We heard that basically Ronaldo could be leaving, Bale could be leaving. It'll be one or the other kind of thing. One's going to stay, one's going to go. Ronaldo left, and it seemed to be Bale will be the one to take over the mantle after Ronaldo. And it just hasn't been. It just has not been the case. And he's really failed to garner the appreciation from the Real Madrid fans, if more than anything, let alone the manager, in his time in Madrid. To say that he hasn't learned language, he hasn't bonded with his teammates, and the fans haven't taken to him. And based on everything that he's actually achieved at Real Madrid, it would be shocking looking from the outside. But when you understand Real Madrid and their high expectation of the fans, the success they have had in the past, a Bale come in to win them a few Champions Leagues, they need more than that because they expect Champions League, they expect La Liga, they expect Copa del Rey. It's like you can never really win at Real Madrid because when you are successful, well, you're supposed to be successful. When you're not successful, you're the enemy and we need to get rid of you. And Gareth Bale the last few years has seemed like somewhat of an outcast, somewhat of an enemy. And it looks like he could be returned to the Premier League. Now, we heard rumours, and we have heard rumours throughout the summer when it comes to Man United. Of course, Jadon Sancho is the main target for Manchester United this summer, has been and still is, as their only signing so far is Donny van der Beek. But there's also been talk about a possible option if they don't get Jadon Sancho. We've heard Ivan Perisic, which is a player that was linked to Man United under Jose Mourinho and heavily linked at that. We've heard Douglas Costa, another one that's been linked, and Gareth Bale, his name popped up a couple times. All of those possibly as loan options if the Jadon Sancho deal did not go through. I think for me anyway, I was like, Perisic, nah. Costa, no, not really. I'm not really excited by Costa. Gareth Bale, obviously I want Jadon Sancho. He's the main target. I want Jadon Sancho. But for me, if we couldn't get him for whatever reason and we had to get a stopgap loan replacement, Gareth Bale, out of those three and any other options, I've heard Kingsley Coleman mentioned, of all the options that I've heard mentioned, I would take Gareth Bale on a season-long loan all day, every day. Hala Madrid says Bale was clutch, but a bit inconsistent in recent years. And I think, yeah, I'm sure he was, but I have to also ask, was he being played consistently? Was he guaranteed, first name on team sheet, but a first team place where you feel loved, you feel wanted, and then you're able to give your best performances? I don't know if that's the case. We know what Gareth Bale can do or has done in the past. The question is, can he rediscover it at 31 years old? It's not that old, if we're going to be honest. So if he's got the drive and desire, that kind of talent, that ability to, as you said, clutch, to grab a game by the scruff of the neck, I would take that Man United in a heartbeat, in an absolute heartbeat, but only on loan because of the wages, 600k a week he's on apparently, the injury issues and the age. If we were to sign him permanently, how much would Real Madrid want? How much would he want on a contract? We know that he was set to go to, I think it was Shanghai, a team in China anyway, in January. And they were going to take him for free. And Real Madrid would obviously get all his wages off the books. They wouldn't have to subsidize anything. And Real Madrid pulled out last minute and basically said, no, we want a transfer fee. So that's why I feel that a loan would have been and would be the most sensible option for Manchester United if we were to get him as a Jadon Sancho replacement. But there have been reports that the Bale and the others, but they've been more of a smokescreen to Borussia Dortmund to kind of say, we are willing to pull out of this deal if we don't, if we can't meet our demand somewhere, you know, between what we're offering and what you lot want for Jadon Sancho, we are willing to go elsewhere. And whether Dortmund buy and fall for the bait, I don't know. Whether that is even the case or Man United maybe are truly in for Gareth Bale, we have to wait and see. But for me personally, it's definitely a player that I would not mind seeing at Man United. Of course, as I said, Jadon Sancho is my main aspiration, my main target. I would love to see him. And, you know, there's a lot of contrary reports going on at the moment. Are we in for him? Are we not in for him? Is the deal dead? Are Borussia Dortmund going to sell? I still believe, as far as I'm aware, the deal is still on in terms of open for negotiation. The windows and the avenues of negotiation have not closed completely. So I'm still hopeful that we can get that deal over the line before October the 5th. But yes, if we can't, then Gareth Bale I would take in a heartbeat. But Spurs are looking like possible, I would say, front runners at this stage for Gareth Bale. We know, of course, he used to play for Tottenham Hotspurs, so he already has that affinity with the fans, and him returning there will somewhat be of a fairy tale story because he left there a hero. If he could return there and, you know, I'm not saying bring them back to glory, they didn't really win anything, but bring them back to fighting on all fronts in the time that, whether it's a year or longer, that he does return to Spurs, that would just endear him to the fans even more. And I think he has a lot more to add to Tottenham Hotspurs. But of course, the big issue, as Footy Live says, he has to take a pay cut. The wages are the big issue. He's on 600k a week. If he joins, what? If Spurs maximum, maybe willing, I'd be very. If it's a loan, you're not paying any fee up front, possibly. You give him what, 300,000 a week, i.e. half of his wages. Would Real Madrid subsidize the other, or would he have to take a pay cut completely? Like when Man United signed Igalo from Shanghai on loan, he had to take a pay cut for us to sign him. I think we're paying him 100,000 a week. His wages over there is 300,000 a week. Gareth Bale may have to say, you know what, I'm going to forego half my wages to get back to playing for a club that I do love, if he truly does love Tottenham Hotspurs. And, you know, the lines are open for Manchester United, for Tottenham and Gareth Bale at the moment. They're talking about a possible deal between this club and his representatives. And we really have to see how that goes. I think if Spurs were to sign him, and we're going to get onto the other position, obviously in the title is mentioned, if Spurs were to get him and the other person, then they could really, you know, some people are writing them off in terms of challenging for top 4, let alone top 6. Top 6, people are saying they're not going to finish top 6. If they were to get Gareth Bale, he, for me, automatically just pushes them as a front runner for, or challenging at least for top 4, because he's that he's that good. He can change a game at the drop of a hat, just like that. So I think that would be a huge signing for them. And I think if Man United were to go for him, as I said, it could more be a smokescreen. He's definitely not a front runner in terms of our targets this summer. That for me, we get him, I'm very, very confident at top 4. I'm very confident at top 4. I said he's that good. But of course, I'm only basing on what he's done in the past. We don't know what Gareth Bale we're going to see right now. 31 years old. He has injury issues. We don't know exactly how he's going to return playing football week in, week out in the Premier League. But based on what we've seen in the past, Gareth Bale makes every team better. Every team in the league is better with a Gareth Bale. And I mean that with no exception, because he can play anywhere across the front line. If we know, for Wales, he plays a lot of times through the middle. In his last season at Spurs, he was playing the number 10 role. He can play on the right. He can play on the left. He strengthens every team in the Premier League. So you can't do bad by getting him if he returns to that kind of form. So, yeah, Gareth Bale could return to the Premier League. And you know what? Even if he doesn't come to Man United, I would love to see him in the Premier League. For anyone but Liverpool, Man City, I would love to see him in the Premier League, because it's just more exciting, more quality, top-class players in our league, making the Premier League the brand and exciting league that it is, and this is why. So we'll see whether it's Man United, whether it's Spurs, or is he going to have another season rotting on the bench, really, at Real Madrid. Sticking with Real Madrid, they've got a left back, of course. We've spoken about him before, Sergio Reguilón. He was on loan at Sevilla last year. You would have seen it, if you watched the Europa League, he would have played against Man United in the semi-finals, and Sevilla went on and won the Europa League, which they always do. It's their tournament, their trophy, really. He had a very good season with them. He's been linked to Manchester United and other clubs, to be fair, because Real Madrid have offered him out. Real Madrid have Marcelo. Real Madrid have Ferland Mendy. They don't need left back, and he's a talented 23-year-old left back. Can balance attack and defense. I would say his attacking is probably better than his defending, but he's a balanced left back, and I think he can offer something to Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspurs. And he was offered to Man United, and Man United said, "All right, we'll have a look at him." There was talk between him or Telles. Of course, Telles is a bit older, 27 years old. Very, very good, very, very good left back. We see him in Champions League as well, but. The Reguilón was actually offered, so we knew there wasn't a big issue in terms of we don't have to convince the club to sell him. The club are trying to get rid of him. However, the club know that he's a talented left back, so they want to insert a buyback clause, and that is the sticking point for Manchester United, because Man United said yes, we're happy to take him. Real Madrid won about 30 million euros, which is probably about 25, 27 million pounds. There may be a couple million. Man United were willing to, negotiate on that. But the player wants to come. The player heard that Man United were looking at him after Real Madrid offered, and the player wants to come. Obviously nothing was signed on the dotted line, but agreement of the player and personal terms to join Manchester United were pretty much done. It wouldn't be an obstacle. Player was excited and ready to join Man United if a deal could be hatched between Man United and Real Madrid. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it can. Real Madrid, as I said, want 30 million, but they want a buyback clause. And Manchester United are basically saying, and I don't have a problem with it, to be fair, we are not a feeder club. We're not a selling club. We're not a stepping stone or development. We don't come to us to get 2 or 3 years and then move on to bigger or greener pastures. Now, when we sign a player, we are in control of the player's, obviously his contract and his just everything in terms of the football inside of it. If we sign him from Real Madrid with the talk is a 35 million to 40 million buyback clause, that means maybe, let's say it's activated after 2 years. Anytime after that 2 years, if Real Madrid say this guy's good, or say they finish with Marcelo or Mendy's out long term, or something goes wrong with their left backs. They say, you know what, we want Reguilón back. We want him back. They can pay 35 to 40 million euros, regardless of how good he has been. So if he comes to Man United and absolutely kills it, turns into the best left back in the world, worth 70 million, Real Madrid only have to pay 35 million euros because that's in the buyback clause. That's a selling club. That's what selling clubs do. When Leicester bought N'Golo Kante from, I want to say Cannes. I'm going to say Cannes. I could be completely wrong. But when they bought him from France to Leicester, they inserted a 30 million pound release fee in his contract, which means that any club can come in and snatch him from them at the end of the season. They won the league with him. Whoop-de-doo. They're happy, of course. They wouldn't have traded that for the world. But then you lost Kante immediately. You're no control over it. The likes of Vardy, the likes of Mahrez didn't have buyback clauses or release clauses in their contracts, which meant that they were able to go into the Champions League next year with both of them in. They signed Vardy on another deal to keep him from the clutch of Arsenal at the time. Mahrez, they sold a year later to Man City, or a year and a half later, I think it was, to Man City. They were able to control where and how their players operated. When you have a release fee, you're not in control. You look at Haaland at Borussia Dortmund, he is absolutely killing it. Like Pulisic was to a lesser extent, but like Sancho is to a greater extent, and like Aubameyang, like Ousmane Dembele, they were killing it at Borussia Dortmund. So Borussia Dortmund set the price and said, this is how much I have to pay. And then whoever wants him has to go out and pay for him. And that's why we haven't signed Jadon Sancho yet, because they have set the price. With Haaland, there's a £50 million release clause, which means no matter how good he gets, no matter how many goals he scores, no matter what he wins them, unless they sign a new contract to remove that release clause, any club can come in, bid 50 million, and Borussia Dortmund are not in control. And Man United are saying, nah, we're too big, too prestigious a club to not be in control of our players. And I agree with it. I 100% agree with it. My only issue is that why are we not able to negotiate this buyback clause out? Silver Spring says Madrid wanted a buyback clause. They wanted one for Hakimi too, but Inter negotiated and got them to accept a first refusal option instead. This is all on Ed Woody. And listen, that's what I'm saying. Why can we not negotiate something else? For me, first refusal is fine, because if you don't want to sell the player, then first refusal doesn't matter. It only matters at the moment that you try to sell. If, let's say, for example, Barcelona offer 50 million, PSG offer 60 million, for example. If we accept Barcelona's 50, Real Madrid only have to match that offer. And if they match that offer, they get the first refusal of the player. Or even less than that. If Barca make a 50 million offer and we're happy to accept it, before we even accept it, we have to go to Real Madrid and say, Barca's offered 50. Do you want him? Do you want him for 50? They did that. They had with Morata, what do they have? That was a buyback clause with Morata. Because people were talking about, for example, what if he's killing it, then that's good for a couple of years. Or they've got Mendy. Why would they buy back Regular? Actually, Silver Spring just says Mendy's top 3 left backs in the world. You don't need Regular. In no way he wants to be second choice. Oh, you're talking to Hala Madrid. My bad. But yeah, people were talking about they're not going to want Regulon back because they've got Mendy, they've got Marcelo. But it's not about wanting him back. If he's killing at Man United and his value goes up to 60 million, 70 million, for example, argument's sake, they buy him back for the lower release fee that you put back in, the buyback clause, and sell him on to the highest bidder. Again, you lose control. But I agree. We need to negotiate better. I don't know. I'm not in the conversation. I'm not in the boardrooms and the meetings or the Skype calls or whatever they're using, Zoom. But we have to negotiate better. The player wants to come. So we have to use that to our advantage. If he really wants to come, you say to Real Madrid, listen, this guy really wants to come to us. We can't put a buyback clause in because that just doesn't make sense for us, man to man, big club to big club. It don't make sense to us. But we give you first refusal. But Real Madrid obviously believe in this guy's talent so much that they're not willing to let him go, because in reality, as I said, with a first refusal, he may stay at Man United for the rest of his career. For example, if Man United don't want to sell him and Real Madrid can do nothing about it. So there's, they're weighing that all up. And I guess by doing that and not agreeing to whatever Ed Woodward and Matt Judge has put forward in terms of negotiation, you start attracting other suitors. And if Spurs now come in and Spurs say, nah, we're happy to give a buyback clause, because Spurs are a selling club. Spurs are a selling club. Levy buys players cheap and sells them on for more money, or tries to get the most out of them. And then we've seen it with Modric, we've seen it with Bale, for example. Let's talk about maybe this could be Harry Kane's last year. They signed a lot of lower value players, even if they got the ability. They look for value in the market. And then if the player develops to a level, they can sell him on for big fee. I'm not saying it's the same model as Borussia Dortmund, but it's nowhere near like a model like Man United, Chelsea, or I wouldn't say Chelsea, because Chelsea's got a whole different system going on there. But Man City, for example, we are buying players to go into the team and win us stuff. We don't care about whether we can sell them on in the future, because money's not an issue for us. So I think that's a perfect deal for Spurs. It's a perfect deal for Jose Mourinho, because Jose ain't going to be here for more than 2-3 years. So if the buyback clause doesn't take effect for another 2 or 3 years, it doesn't matter to him. If Levy can make a 10, 15 million in 2 or 3 years, it don't matter to him either. He's made that money back, and maybe they've got back into the Champions League, for example. But it just goes to show that when it comes to negotiating, we're behind the market. We are behind the rivals when it comes to negotiation. And that's why when we can't sign the players as quick and as easy as a lot of clubs make it seem. You know, the fact that we even got that Van der Beek deal over the line so quickly and efficiently maybe speaks more to Van der Sar than it does to our negotiating team. Yes, it was all done like kind of underhand, and not underhand, but kept very quiet, which I like. And it just sprung out of nowhere. 2 days later, signed, sealed, delivered, Van der Beek. Every other transfer gets dragged and dragged and dragged in the media. So very unfortunate if we are to miss out on Reguilón. I hope, bloody hell, that we don't miss out on him and Sancho, because that means we're going to end up with Donny van der Beek as our only summer signing. And that is not good enough. And anyone that's going to go into the season like, oh, yeah, Ollie should be doing better. What do you want him to do? Everyone else is strengthening around us. Imagine Spurs get Bale and Reguilón, and we just get Donny van der Beek. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Yes, we got quality players, Bruno, Pogba, but we're going to have a lot of matches and a lot of competition. We cannot expect this team with Pereira, Lingard, Mata as our backup. We can't expect that to be successful. So for me, I think the next couple of weeks is very, very important. Red Devil Studio says, yo, Neeks, I knew Sancho wasn't going to happen. Listen, it's not done yet. I'm not ruling it out. I'm still hopeful that the deal can get done. It is not dead. Dortmund can say what they want. I don't care. If the money's put on the table, Dortmund would accept it, because they've got agreement with Jadon Sancho. If any club bids 120 million euros, you can go. Whether that is on October the 4th or whether that's on January the 4th. Jadon Sancho, I believe, is that's a deal that can still happen. I mean, it's going to speak to our negotiation, as I just said. Can we broker a deal for Jadon Sancho? And we do need a defender. You know, it looks like Upamecano, of course, he's probably going to be leaving next summer, not this summer, which means that for me, it was a centre-back, more a priority, but a left-back was definitely a priority. In reality, we get Van der Beek. If we can get Sancho and a left-back, whether that's Reguilón, whether that's Telles. I mean, for me, Telles going forward is better than him and Luke Shaw probably put together. But is that a viable deal? Like, we heard about it, but we haven't heard really anything concrete when it comes to Telles. But I think it's definitely a position that we need to strengthen, left back and centre back. And it looks like centre back, whether it's Upamecano, Koulibaly, Badiashile, isn't going to be happening this summer. So there's talks about the Smalling to Roma deal breaking down, and it just goes to show that this market isn't what everyone seems and thinks. Like, Smalling wants to go to Roma. Roma wants Smalling. But Roma know that Smalling wants to go. So then they start trying to gazunder us and drop the fee lower and lower. And in one hand, Man United are being forced to overpay for players. But in the next hand, they must undersell their players. So when it comes to Reguilón in terms of the buyback clause, and it comes to Smalling in terms of Roma trying to gazunder in terms of the price, I'm with Man United on that. But we need to get those. We need to find a way to get the price for Smalling and to get Reguilón for the price we're willing to pay. That's the bottom line. I don't care how you go about it. It just needs to get done, because other clubs seem to be able to get it done. Silver Spring, they still need a striker. Is that Spurs? Spurs still need a striker. Yeah, they do. 100% they do. If they get Gareth Bale, it gives other options. You know, Son can move to the middle. They'll have 4 wingers in total: in Son, Moura, Bergwijn, and Bale, with Kane as the only number 9. But of course, I said Son can go into the middle and they have other options. But for me, yeah, they need a striker. We heard about Milic. I think that one's pretty much dead in the water in terms of how much Napoli wanted for him. I heard some talk about Troy Deeney, and I think that's a bad signing. If they were to get Troy Deeney as a backup, might as well sign back with Llorente. Is he retired? Is he still available? Like, nah, not Troy Deeney. Not Troy Deeney. Young Guna, Arsenal are only tapping up Brazilians. Yeah, well, listen, let's talk about Arsenal in a second. We're going to get onto Arsenal, as the title said. Gaming and sports talk. Dad, Neeks, come on, man. Man United is going to pay 100 million during these times. I'm not hearing about these times. Man United are a cash machine. We have so much money. We generate so much funds that COVID or no COVID, the money is there. The problem is the Glazers work backwards in the sense that they decide how much dividends they want to take out, and they work backwards in terms of how much they can spend to ensure they get that amount of dividends, as opposed to going top to bottom and saying, well, this is how much we earn, this is how much we spend, how much dividends is left over. They're more interested in lining their own pockets than they are of giving the manager the funds that he needs to strengthen his team and be successful on the pitch. So Corona or no Corona. Solskjaer spoke about it in the summer. Not the summer. Actually, to be fair, it was probably about the summer. Just before lockdown ended and just before the Premier League restarted. He did an interview on Sky Sports, I believe. And he spoke about our ability in this time when a lot of clubs are going to be struggling because of finances. We won't be in that position and we need to take advantage of it. And we haven't done that. We have not taken advantage of it. Of course, there's still 2 weeks to go. But even then, the Premier League for us starts on the weekend. We're missing out on at least 1 or 2 games to then take advantage of it for the long term. Why haven't we done it already? What have we been waiting for? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Red Devil Studio, if we don't sign players, which youth players can fill the gap? So, of course, Ethan Laird, fullback, he can definitely, well, he's a right back. So he can be back up to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. The issue is Brandon Williams is also a right back. So we still don't have a natural left footer to challenge Luke Shaw at left back. That's the problem. But yeah, Ethan Laird, I hope he can step up this season. We saw Tendai Mengi, I think his first name is Mengi anyway. He made 1 or 2 appearances last season, I believe it was, came off the bench in the Europa League. Of course, we've seen the likes of James Garner. I'm not sure what his situation is in terms of loan this year, but of course, Mason Greenwood. Mason Greenwood is the most obvious one. If we weren't to get Sancho, I expect him to play many games on that right-hand side. Get him in your fantasy teams if we don't get Sancho. Maybe get him in the fantasy team if we do get Sancho. He's that good. I can't see much outside. Of course, Chong has gone. Chong went out to, I want to say Wolfsburg, was it Werder Bremen? But he scored. He scored his first goal for his new team. Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen scored his first goal for his new team, and it was a pretty good goal as well. And I hope he can get some good experience out on loan and come back a better player at Man United. And that's what we failed to do a lot in the past, is loan out our youth players to get real development in big man football. Not no youth nonsense. Big man football where they're roughing you up, where you have to bulk up and be strong and, I know it's not the same now, but playing in front of proper crowds and all those kind of stuff that we don't seem to take advantage of. And we wait and wait and wait in the youth system, and then they say, oh, okay, they're not good enough. Or they are good enough. We bring them up straight away, the likes of Greenwood, the likes of Rashford. But we look at someone like, for example, Harry Kane. He went on a few loans, came back. Obviously got given his chance under Tim Sherwood, and now is one of the best strikers in the world. But moving on to Arsenal, young gunner, going back to his one, says Arsenal only tapping up Brazilians. Well, yeah, Ramsey did his match pre-review, after the Fulham game. Brazilian Gabriel, both of them came to the fore on their debuts to give Arsenal that 3-0 victory. Of course, we know they also got Martinelli, they've got David Luiz, so they've got a bit of a Brazilian contingent going on there. They're also linked to Thomas Partey and Hossam Aouar as well. There's actually been talk about Oscar. I don't know if that's what you're also referring to. There's been talk about Oscar coming out and saying that, I think he spoke to, let me bring up the message. I think it was Ramsey who's actually sent it to me. I think he spoke to, was it David Luiz? I think it was David Luiz he spoke to. Let's see, there's this former Chelsea attacking me for the Oscar. I really want to go back to Europe. They, Willian and Luiz, called me. they said, come to Arsenal, come here. So maybe maybe Mikel Arteta sending his Brazilians out on agent scouting trips to go and get some players for them. I don't know. I don't even know what Oscar does these days. Like, of course he's playing in China, so I don't know if they're even playing right now with all the Corona thing going on. But I don't know if he's even the player that he left. He was when he left the Premier League initially. So I don't know. But Houssem Aouar, he's definitely a good player. Thomas Partey is a very good player. So that's those will be good signings for Arsenal if they can get them over the line. But of course, today, their big signing, arguably their most important signing. You know what? No, not arguably. Their most important signing this summer is that of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who has signed a new 3-year deal to stay at the club. He's 31 at the moment. He'll be here until 34. You know, could be his last big, long contract. He is the highest paid player at Arsenal. So that would be between 350 and 400,000 a week. We know Mesut Ozil is on between 300 and 350 a week. As the captain, their best player, their talisman. You know, some say the difference between Europa League football and relegation for Arsenal last season as they finished 8th. He was the most important signing, and they've done very, very well to sign him up to a new deal. Signed the TING. He was saying it in his reveal video, his Instagram live today. He spoke about him wanting to become an Arsenal legend, following the footsteps of Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry, Tony Adams. Well, listen, if he's going to do that, he has to win them a big trophy. FA Cup is cool. Community Cup, all right, whatever. Community Shield. But you need to be winning Premier League and Champions League. I know, to be fair, no one at Arsenal won the Champions League. But if he was to do that, or even maybe a European trophy like a Europa League, if they were to do that, it will put him in good stead towards being an Arsenal legend. You know, there've been a lot of players in the past decade or so for Arsenal who've left. Samir Nasri, Gael Clichy, Adebayor, Cesc Fabregas, Alexander Hleb, Robin van Persie. They've all left for Pacha's new and Pacha's greener. They've won big trophies since they've left Arsenal. Aubameyang decided to stay, and maybe that FA Cup win was so important, you know, for him to buy into the vision of Mikel Arteta, who's looked very, very good since, well, decent, should I say, since he's joined Arsenal in late December 2019. Won one domestic trophy and the Community Shield. So he's obviously bought into that vision that Arteta laid out for him. And of course, when you're getting paid 350, 400,000 a week, you're more inclined to sign. Who else was offering him 300 to 400,000 a week? We heard that Inter Milan made an offer. I don't know what that offer was. We heard that Barcelona made an offer. Barcelona are broke, so I really don't know what the offer is. They need to sell players before they sign anyone. They're trying to get rid of. Well, they're trying to sign Memphis Depay, and they can't even sign him before they get rid of the likes of Luis Suarez and others who have come to the end of the time. So I don't even know what money they were thinking about trying to sign Aubameyang with. They're broke boys. They got some big players there on big wages who they've signed for big money, who they need to get the best out of. And that's what they need to focus on. Of course, Ronald Koeman's there and he got ideas about what players he wants, as in Memphis Depay being one, Gini Wijnaldum being another. Aubameyang could have waited, of course. He's a free transfer at the end of the season, couldn't negotiate with foreign clubs in January. But I guess maybe he wasn't willing to. You know, he saw there's other rebuilding going on at other clubs as well. And maybe he's happy at Arsenal. I think, to be fair, I think he was always happy at Arsenal. The question was, could Arsenal match his ambitions? And what does he want from the rest of his career? Does he think he can get at Arsenal? Because, of course, if he goes to Inter Milan, they're challenging for Serie A already. They're challenging for European trophies. They got to the Europa League final this season. He goes to Barcelona. They're going to be challenging for La Liga. As bad as that they are, 8-2 and all that, they're going to be challenging for La Liga. They're always going to be in and around the Champions League, quarters, semis at a minimum, really. Arsenal are not there. So he must really believe in the next 3 years under Arteta that they can really get back up there. But ultimately, he is happy there. He signed a new contract, 3 years. Arsenal fans are delighted. And I think the Premier League is better off with him. Many will say, should I say, the best striker in the league, right now. Me personally, I still say Sergio Aguero, but Aubameyang's record speaks for itself. It's absolutely brilliant. Only Mo Salah has scored more goals since he made his Arsenal debut. I think it's 57 versus 55. And only Jamie Vardy has a better conversion rate for strikers who have scored. Can't remember the full stat, but I think he's got a better conversion rate for strikers who scored over a certain amount of goals. So he is near the top on all of the striking metrics. And him playing out wide left, he's doing a different role in terms of him, in Arteta's 3-4-3, tracking back, going forward. He's doing a lot of work out there, still scoring a shed load of goals. So it's good for Arsenal. We'll see how prosperous it is for him in terms of the rest of his career, the twilight of his career. But as it stands, he's Arsenal's main goal scorer. And I think he's, on a personal level at least, he started the season well and he's looking to have another good season. But yeah, that's it. That's it from me. Aubameyang signs a ting. Gareth Bale could be returning to the Premier League, to Tottenham Hotspurs. Sergio, REGUILÓN, Manchester United or Spurs. It's your decision to make.